start. My name is Laura Tosi. I know some of you as your physicians, and some of you as a friend, and some of you I haven't met. So for those of you who I haven't met, I'm a pediatric orthopedic surgeon whose patient population ranges currently from 0 to 56 years. And that represents an extraordinary change, I would argue, in the demographics of America. When I started out, I was told everyone with spina bifida would be dead at 10, and everyone with cerebral palsy would be dead at 16. Oops. This was not good information, but I took it in like any good student, said, yup. Ironically, I figured that was wrong relatively early on, and that was a good thing. At the risk of being totally inappropriate, I was responsible for one of the largest lawsuit settlements in D.C. ever a number of years ago, because lawyers brought in a 16-year-old boy I'd been caring for a long time. And there was finally a lawsuit against the OBGYN in the hospital and so forth. And they were looking at planning and what was it going to cost to take care of this individual. And so I'm sitting there with these two allegedly intelligent lawyers, one on each side, and a number of other folks. And they say, now, Dr. Tosi, we see that the actuarial data says that this young boy is going to live till he's 18. What are his needs going to be? And I turned to these guys, and I confess I was not overly polite. And I said, have you looked at the patient? Well, yes, he's profoundly disabled. I said, he has the body of an Adonis. I should have a body like this. It is true he is severely cognitively disabled, and he was very, and still is. And I said, are you going to deny this young man antibiotics? Are you not going to give him flu shots, etc.? This child will outlive me. You could have heard a pin drop. And then they rushed out the door to call their offices. And it changed the whole dynamic. But, they were used to looking at actuarial data. We live in the United States today. And it may be true that you may not be as physically independent as you want to be. But we do expect everyone here to live to be very old. And I think that's going to influence you tremendously over time in terms of how you start to look at your group, how you look at your relationship with Congress, how you look with your relationship with health insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so I just want to spur you on just a little bit and push you. So I came with all this wrong information, and that was bad. So there's what we were taught, and what is still in some of the textbooks, and there's what we observe. And I just spoke to this already. We were taught all the wrong things. So survival is much better than we thought. And this is particularly, and I'll show you a graph in just a minute, this is particularly true for the persons with milder forms of cerebral palsy. And the very fact that you are here, whether you were in a wheelchair or not, would indicate that you have a milder form. And even in those individuals with the really severe forms, severe cognitive disability, needing a feeding tube, etc., we have seen extraordinary improvements in life expectancy, interestingly enough, primarily attributed to the feeding tubes. And spina bifida as well. So this is very hard to see. I'm leaving these slides, and David is free to share them with you on the internet. But Strauss et al. Had a paper in 2008, and so said, what's the life expectancy by age and cohort? Severely disabled, cannot lift head. Lifts head or chest, rolls, sits, cannot walk, walks unaided. Okay? If you are a female of 15, we expect you to and you can walk unaided, we expect you to live 55 more years. Okay? You're very close to the general population who would live 65 more years. If you are 60 already, a number I thought I would never see, okay, and you're female, okay, we don't expect the severely involved people to have lived, but you're expected to live another 20 years, very close to that of the general population of 23 more years. More years. In the guys, you know, it's true whether you have CP or not. You're always lagging behind us girls. Sorry about that. Right. Good thinking. Okay, so a male 15 who can roll, sit, not quite walk, expected life expectancy 45 more years at least. If you're already 60, another 16. So these are incredible numbers. Survival curves, okay? Again, this is from Strauss, 2004. Everybody tends to die off over time. If you can walk without support, very close to the general population. Some mobility, not that far off. It's the folks who are completely unable to move and are generally completely dependent who are dying earlier, but none of this age 16 malarkey. Notice that that's falling off at 68, okay? So, important. Now, what are some of the problems that we face? Well, as I've started to work on this, I found that there's no data, or nearly no data. No one knows who's out there. What typically happens is that individuals with disabilities, first of all, get thrown out of the healthcare system, usually at 18 or 21, depending on the city that you live in, because the folks at the children's hospital say, well, we don't take care of adults anymore. And then you go and try to find a doctor and say, well, I don't know how to take care of you. Go away, go away. And we only have 7 minutes per patient, and it will take 7 minutes to get you on the exam table. Yes, ma'am.
Why is that?
I would blame our educational system, that although there is some work on care of the disabled in the medical school curriculums, there's very little.
I did what you said. The doctors should realize that people with CP live a long life, and so why they don't see that, I don't know.
Well, remember, this is new information. It takes a long time for new information to be incorporated into healthcare. And there are a lot of articles that say that it takes 17 years for a good idea to be incorporated. So 17 years ago, everybody I know still thought everyone with CP would be dead at 16.
Do you think it will change?
Do I think?
It will change.
The answer is, I believe strongly, it will not change unless the cerebral palsy community gets militant. And that's what's going to be the end of my talk. So give me just a sec just to get there. I'm slow. So we talked about the fact that we think that everybody with a disability's life expectancy is going to increase. Just an interesting pointer, I think the numbers of individuals with significant disabilities is really going to go up because we're saving so many lives. And this is a graph from just last month's pediatrics. And it shows individuals with CP in the hospital. And if they don't have big chronic, if they don't have multiple different problems, the numbers of people hospitalized in the pediatric hospitals overall has stayed the same for 20 years. Okay? what you're seeing is the numbers of individuals with multiple chronic disorders is who's being admitted. Numbers are going up. We're saving more lives. And so that I would argue that what CMS and others have failed to see is that you are a growing population, and making sure that the services are available for everyone who needs them is going to be a big problem. Whoops, I'm going backwards. Okay. So the challenge as an orthopedic surgeon, and remember I'm ultimately a auto mechanic for my patients, is how can we help maximize function, comfort, and independence, and there are no great answers. So that's my intro. So I started recognizing this problem over a decade ago, but I didn't know what to think or do, and I always thought somebody else had the answer. And I kept waiting around for somebody else to have the answer and to fix the problem. And what rapidly became clear is nobody was fixing the problem, nobody had answers. I have a husband who has had political jobs for much of his career, and one of the things that he kept driving home to me is if there is no data, it will be very, very difficult to get anything done. And I kept saying, and he, yeah, so you're not going to get anything done, you got no data. So I finally realized that I needed to step forward. You can't just complain all the time, and try to create some data that could be in one place. And I have a bunch of these out front, but you can also get it, the articles that are in it, for free on the web. But what I did, with the help of wonderful people, is the American Academy of Cerebral Palsy let me host a workshop in 2008 on musculoskeletal problems of folks with CP. Let me tell you, raising money for that was horrific. You have no idea how many people said, there's nobody out there, they all die. This isn't a problem. You know, But in spite of incredible odds, and thank God, I had this wonderful pre-med who I wrote an initial grant, and then she repackaged it for over 150 different foundations, and we raised the money to have it. And then another year of my life went out of the window, creating this, which is the proceedings of that meeting. And do feel free to take these, but the main reason I brought them, frankly, is if you know a congressman, you've got to become an advocacy group. If you know a congressman, a senator, anybody, I urge you to march into their offices, drive into their offices, whatever it takes, and say, we are out there. As you look at this, however, you will see it's got all kinds of extraneous stuff because you have to have this one and that one to even get permission to do the workshop. So Cerebral Palsy International was one of our funders.